The president tweeting this morning in 3 different messages, in some ways making a point of emphasis on his comments yesterday at that listening session about what he wants when it comes to teachers and guns. Let's just put the tweets up and I'll go through the points that he made. He said, "I never said give teachers guns, like was stated on CNN and NBC. What I said was about the possibility of giving concealed guns to adept teachers with military or special training." He goes on to say, "If a savage sicko came to the school with bad intentions, highly trained teachers would serve as a deterrent." And he noted about the cost. He claims that it would cost much less than guards, and a gun-free zone is a magnet for bad people. He says attacks would end if he was able to have certain highly trained teachers with guns. He adds that history shows that school shootings last on average 3 minutes. It takes police and first responders 5 to 8 minutes to get to the site of the crime. Now, that last point is particularly important because I think in Florida, that was the case where this shooting did not last very long. But I want to play exactly what President Trump said in that listening session yesterday so you can hear for yourselves. Take a listen.
And this would only be obviously for people that are very adept at handling a gun. And it's called concealed carry, where a teacher would have a concealed gun on them. They'd go for special training, and they would be there, and you would no longer have a gun-free zone.
Look, those comments are pretty clear, and we played them and reported them as he said it. But I think it's also very clear that there's a lot of pushback to this idea, including from Marco Rubio, who was asked about this last night by a teacher. And he said, "I just don't support this idea. I don't think it's a good idea to have weapons in the school, whether it's in the hands of a teacher or not. I think it's a little bit separate from the idea of having armed guards. It's just a controversial issue. But the president clearly thinks it would be a huge deterrent for attacks like these, Chris."
All right, Abby. Joining us now is CNN political analyst Josh Green and Jonathan Martin and CNN political director David Chalian. And, of course, Allison is in Florida, and I'm here in New York. So, David, he did say he wanted to arm teachers. Now, to be fair to the president, he's saying, "I didn't say all teachers." Okay. He said all teachers would have the opportunity to be trained to see if they could qualify for concealed carry permits. Maybe you'd have up to 20%, he said, and that would make a difference because gun-free zones are an invitation to murder.
Right. He was saying there's already a population, he believes, of teachers who could be adept at having...
But he did suggest training as well.
Without a doubt.
This is not unusual for someone who hasn't owned a position for very long, okay? He is struggling his way through when he's dealing with criticism to it. What's the plus minus?
But here, you have to see what he's doing here. What you just saw in the tweets this morning is that the president is now latching on to what he believes is a solution. He said this could instantly fix it. So what I hear and what I'm reading in his tweets is, okay, the president believes that the instant fix, the instant solution that can solve this problem is more guns. He's not talking about restrictions on guns. So that's first of all. And second of all, he is taking a position that he knows is controversial. He sort of wants the fight here. That's what the tweets this morning to me suggest, is that he understands that he's taking a position that is more in line with what the NRA has espoused before on gun-free zones, not a sort of compromised position that he's trying to reach across the divide.
You are right, and we're seeing it in real time because Allison, he's tweeting again. If a potential sicko shooter knows that a school has a large number of very weapons-talented teachers and others who will be instantly shooting, the sicko will never attack that school. Cowards won't go there. Problem solved. Must be offensive. Defensive alone won't work. J. Mart, we have had armed guards in schools before where there were shootings. And obviously the shooting still occurred. But there's style here, right? This is Trump getting criticized and now doubling down on a position. Yeah. But there is a lot to this idea of having better security in schools could make a difference, make the schools hard targets. Where are Democrats with their level of acceptance of that idea?
I think the Democrats, if there were some efforts to add funding for additional security folks at school, would probably be all for that. They're not going to be for giving side pieces to teachers teaching algebra, I don't think. I think that's beyond the pale. But look, we're sitting here responding to a president who is responding to TV coverage. It's quite circular, but I guess this is the world that we're in. Look, I think the fact is he is trying to portray the image of responsiveness, of doing something, but his instinct is not thought out based on policy papers, based on conversations with experts at think tanks. He's just trying to throw stuff out. And I would remind you guys that he has a track record after there are these terrible moments of instinctually turning to the idea of more weapons. After the Pulse nightclub shooting in 2016 in Orlando, he floated the idea of adding weapons there to the security guards at such nightclubs. And even the NRA at that point said, nah, that's not really where we're at. So look, he's responding to stuff. He's just floating ideas, and often it is grounded in a more sort of pro-gun stance. But I think we have to be careful in not assuming that this is where he's actually going to land on the issue. As we know, he tweets about all manner of things. He floats changing libel laws probably once a month. It doesn't happen. So I think we have to see what actual bill gets to his desk. And I think that's going to be important, is what kind of cover will he give to his party on Capitol Hill in terms of what kind of bill they can move to get on his desk.
Yeah. Hey, Josh, listen, being here at the ground zero in Parkland of school shootings right now, what I hear from the people here and the teachers and the students is that they're open, okay? These students are too young to already be indoctrinated with some position. They're open to suggestion if it worked. So prove to them that that's effective. Show them the data that arming teachers would be effective, and I think they might be open to it. But at the moment, it's just sort of this notion that might help. And what they hear from their teachers is that that's not why they got into teaching, that the teachers themselves don't feel equipped to take on a crazed armed gunman. Last night at the town hall, one of the teachers from here talked about that. Listen to this.
Am I supposed to get extra training now to serve and protect on top of educate these children? Am I supposed to have a Kevlar vest? Am I supposed to strap it to my leg or put it in my desk?
I mean, Josh, some teachers might be willing to do that, but obviously we would have to know if that actually works.
Well, we would. And one thing I think you have to understand here is that this is pretty clearly the NRA position. More guns, not less guns. And I think Trump pivots there instinctively when he's trying to lead, but kind of flailing in his inability to really come up with a policy that works. I think one of the problems you saw in his little tweet storm this morning was that, arming guards and having that be a deterrent doesn't quite make sense when you think about the fact that a lot of these shooters are either mentally ill or suicidal. I don't think there's any reason to think they'd be deterred by the fact that some people on campus might have guns. They're there to kill, and in some cases wind up being killed themselves. We've seen that happen in numerous school shootings. I think the more encouraging sign came in the CNN town hall last night in Marco Rubio's willingness to embrace new positions, bans on high-capacity magazine clips, raising the age limit to buy rifles. If that signifies a real change in the current of the Republican debate over guns and gun control, I think that could be meaningful and produce something finally that might be a fundamental change. But if that's going to happen, it sure seems like, based on the last 48 hours, that leadership is going to have to come from the Congress and not the White House, because Trump doesn't seem to know what he's doing.